What does the 5+7 playoff format mean for the Sun Belt? It's Locked On Sun Belt.
You are Locked On Sun Belt, your daily podcast on the Sun Belt Conference, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, good morning, everybody. Dave Schultz, Locked On Sun Belt, your team every day. Today's episode brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. All right, we'll go over the midweek Sun Belt baseball. I don't care who you're playing. Will Butcher is leading the nation in RBIs from Troy. That's impressive. And we'll preview a little bit of the hoops coming up here tonight. Wednesday night Sun Belt hoops action. But yesterday, the big news, excuse me. The big news yesterday was college football playoff going to a 5-7 format. That's basically the four conference champions, and I guess maybe a G5 champion. It doesn't really say that though. So I'm going back and forth and trying to figure out what it meant. Is it good for the Sun Belt? Bad for the Sun Belt? Let's see what this says here. I'm going to read the press release, all right? Under the 12-team playoff format that begins this fall, the four highest-ranked conference champions will be seeded 1 through 4, and each will receive a first-round bye. Now, most likely, that's going to be the SEC, the Big Ten, the ACC, and the Big 12. All right, most likely. And then they get their buys, and, the first 4 teams get a bye, and then the other first-round games are actually on campus. Having said that, quickly, I think eventually they're going to get to 16, and the 2 first rounds are going to be on campus because they're going to see how incredible this is going to be this season. All right? So that's actually all that it says. That's basically the entire deal, and that people will. Let's see what else it says. All right, I'll read the paragraph that matters. All right. So under the 12-team playoff format that begins this fall, the 4 highest-ranked conference champions will be seeded 1 through 4, and each will receive a first-round bye. While teams seeded 5 through 12 will play each other in the first round on the home field of the higher-ranked team. The quarterfinals and the semifinals will be played in New Year's 6-day bowls. The national championship game will continue to be at a neutral site. No conference will qualify automatically, and there will be no limit on the number of participants from a conference. All right, so that means the SEC is going to get a bunch. Probably means the Big Ten is going to get a bunch to begin with. Okay, and maybe now Texas and Oklahoma could be regretting going to the SEC, but they're going to the SEC because of the money. Because there's a good chance that they could have gotten into the college football playoff if they just stayed in the Big 12. All right. A lot easier. Anyway. All right. So people have basically been saying this is going to lock Notre Dame in because most likely they'll be in the top 12 in the nation, although not. I mean, you can't lose more than 2 ball games if you're Notre Dame. I don't care what your schedule is. If you lose 2 ball games, you can be in the top 12, but you're probably not going to be in the top 12 you're probably not going to be in the top 12 if you lose 3 ball games. That could be different if you're in the SEC or the Big Ten or a Power 5 conference. Now, again, no one automatically qualifies on actually, and so we'll see what happens with the group of 5. I think once it gets to 16, you'll see a group of 5 team in there. Because otherwise, I mean, if you want conspiracy theory, they're going to do their best to keep the group of 5 out of there. Former Syracuse head coach Dino Babers was not for playoffs, not for 3 rounds anyways, because he was talking about himself. And Syracuse at the time, he's like, look, we might be able to play 2 of these. There's no way we'll play 3 of these. There's no way we'll have the depth to compete with the Alabama and Georgias. Maybe we can upset 1 team, maybe upset 2, but there's no way we're going to be able to hang tight for 3. And now you got to play, You may have to play 4, right? If you're not one of the first 4 buys, you're going to be playing 4 ball games, which would mean Notre Dame. All right. I'm pro playoff. I really am. And I think the G5, what's going to happen, we'll see. They're going to have to schedule. All right. Liberty did not have a good schedule going into the season last year. It was not bad afterwards. All right. It was better than people thought, as other teams on their schedule had really good years. And Liberty took care of them, but it wasn't strong enough to get into the college football playoff. And that's the problem with the G5. You can't say, hey, we're undefeated, look at us, unless you're Cincinnati, unless you're UCF, right? You need to schedule and you need to win. That's why South Alabama's schedule or season last year was so weird. They're going on the road to beat Oklahoma State, but they lost at home to Central Michigan after jumping out to a 14-0 lead. It was really strange. And if they played Tulane on the road, say you had a close loss to Tulane, you beat Oklahoma State and then you beat Central Michigan and the only loss is Tulane, you're probably in the top 25. And the way the rankings work, you keep on winning and other teams who are playing each other keep on losing, you may not move up that fast, but eventually you'll move up because everybody loses. And then you keep on moving up. The thing is, at the end, which we've seen before, they may do a razzle-dazzle at the end and say, well, their schedule overall isn't great, even though they've lost less than this Power 5 conference team. This Power 5 conference team has played much better competition, and there's no argument for that, unfortunately. There will not be an argument for that, especially if the SEC is playing 9 games. Now, also, we should mention this probably it'll be interesting to see what happens with some of these Power 5 schedules if you're getting 12 teams into a playoff and then 16 teams into a playoff. Because right now, it's tough to get in with 2 losses. It's almost not impossible. We've seen it. I think Alabama and LSU have won national championships with 2 losses. Certainly Alabama has. And LSU got in with 2 losses. I have to go back and remember if they won it. But now you will be able to. With 12 teams, you'll be able to get in with 2 losses. And certainly with 16 teams. Because if everyone's playing these tough schedules, then these wins and losses aren't going to matter. And we'll see if, we got meetings today with the Big Ten and the SEC and see what they decide to do. Because, I heard someone on the radio suggest 15 to 20 years that the Power 5 is going to pull away. It's going to happen faster than that. And now we got to watch what Florida State is doing. That Florida State could pay off their rights to the ACC and get out, and watch out when that happens. We could have a whole new conference realignment coming up here really fast. That'll open up the floodgates. I'll be honest with you. I hope Syracuse has a plan. I know that's a different podcast, but my Syracuse Orange could be on the outside looking into that. They better find their way into the Big Ten really fast. So as far as the Sun Belt is concerned in the G5, they're going to have to figure out on how to schedule, these Power 5 teams to get into this playoff. The Cajuns were supposed to play Michigan State, and Michigan State backed out. Maybe for this year. And that would have been a ball game that the Cajuns could, I don't know how good Michigan State's going to be this year, but the Cajuns could have, that's a Power 5 win. Maybe not the biggest of all Power 5 wins, but that's a Power 5 win if you pull that one off, right? They competed with Minnesota for a half last year. You gotta get some of those, because going in to beat one of the top Power 5 teams is unlikely. You got to beat some of that second tier Power 5 team, kind of like the Minnesotas, like the Michigan States. If you get fortunate to beat a Wisconsin, right? Georgia Southern had all kinds of chances to beat Georgia Southern last year and couldn't pull it off, ended up getting blown out. So you got to kind of have to beat that. You have to beat that second tier ranking, right? Georgia State had a chance. I think it was Georgia State had a chance to beat Auburn a couple of years ago. TJ Finley bailed Auburn out of that ballgame. As for the G5, they will have their work cut out for them trying to get into this playoff format. All right, we shall see, because nobody's getting an automatic berth. we'll see how it works out. All right, let's take a time out. We will come back. We'll do a little midweek baseball, and a Sunbelt player leads the nation in RBI. We will tell you about that after I tell you about Gametime. Gametime is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all of the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. And right now, users can get $100 off when they buy a big game ticket with code VEGAS100. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their best price guarantee, Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. See the view from your seat before you buy so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. All-in prices show your total upfront so you know you're getting a great deal before you check out. Buy tickets in seconds with just 2 taps. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime right now. Terms apply. Just download the Gametime app and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. That's code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Download Gametime today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. We mentioned over the weekend, some teams in the Sunbelt had better records than others. Maybe some sweeps. South Alabama 4-0. Not sure that was the toughest of all competitions. 4-0 is 4-0. All right, and baseball it's not a sport that's meant to be swept. It's meant to be, win a series. Like the Cajuns win a series, good series win. All right, others, Coastal lost 2 out of 3, but they lost to Duke and Indiana. Georgia Southern lost 2 out of 3, but they were playing Maryland. So, you have to take the early season starts with a grain of salt. And we'll get to last night's, we'll do that right now. But other than that, I don't care who you're playing. Troy's Will Butcher went into Tuesday night's ball game leading the nation with 15 RBI. That's a lot. I think he had 9 in one game. That could be a month for some people. He had 9 in one ball game. He already has 17 RBI. There better be a man on first base if I'm pitching to him. All right, because otherwise I'm walking him. All right, if there's runners on base and there's someone on first, or not somebody on first, I'm going to walk him. Depending on the situation, I may load the bases. We're going to not pitch to the guy who's got 17 RBIs now in 5 ball games, I think. Let's see. Troy won last night. They beat A&M, Florida A&M, I should say. That's a big difference there. 13-2. Butcher had 2 more RBIs, by the way. I think Troy is actually, they are 4-1. So they've played 5. They played an extra ball game. They've played 5 games so far. Again, competition, not specifically the toughest. Let's see. Who did they have? Was that Edwardsville? Let me see here. All right. They did. They played Southern Illinois University of Edwardsville. Beat them 24-13, beat them 9-8 in 10 innings, shut them out 11-0. They did lose 7-6. As I mentioned, baseball is not meant to be swept. It's meant to be a series win, and that's what they did. So they took 3 out of 4, and they beat A&M on the road 13-2. But Butcher, at least heading into last night's, had 15 RBI. Now he's got 2 more. He's got 17. That is outrageously good. That's outrageously good. All right, let's see what else happened Tuesday night in the Sun Belt. Unfortunately, Old Dominion in Virginia was postponed. Virginia pitcher Aaron Buchanan's father passed away. So apparently services were Tuesday, and they're going to play today. So our deepest condolences to the Virginia pitcher. Georgia blanks Georgia State 15-0. Coastal Carolina beats Carolina Wilmington 7-2. App State with a win against High Point 7-1. Georgia Tech takes down Georgia Southern 7-4. ULM, they may be off to a good start. They run ruled Grambling. They're 13-3. Let's see see what happened there. What's because ULM is they're 2-2. They actually lost 2 out of 3 to Missouri State at home, and they just beat Grambling. They get Murray State. They don't have necessarily the toughest schedule here either. So we'll keep an eye on ULM, but certainly nice to get a run rule victory out there. TCU takes down Texas State 6-5, and the Cajuns, with an 8-run first inning, takes down McNeese. For some reason in this ball game, let me see what the stats are. Do I have the box score here? I think I still have the box score up. Well, it doesn't go down as a caught stealing. They had issues. Both teams had issues staying on the bag. The Cajuns have had all kinds of base running mistakes, not tagging up from third base with 1 out, not running from second base with 2 outs, getting doubled off of first base on a bunt. They've had their share of base running mistakes. Getting thrown out trying to steal is not a base running mistake. That's a good play by the other team. But they have not. They've had some bad base running mistakes. They made the final out at third base of an inning. So it's not been great. Last night, I think they overslid a bag 4 times. McNeese overslid a bag a few times as well. That's crazy. That's insane. You can't be oversliding the bag. It happens one time. You got to, realize what's going on. All right. Maybe it's the blue turf. They got Smurf turf there at McNeese. I don't know what the case is, but don't overslide the bag. I think that's like 8 base running mistakes by the Cajuns in 4 ball games. All right. Now they've won 3 of the 4, but the base running mistake cost them a potential win against Wright on Saturday. Don't make mistakes. All right. I one of the things that really upsets me is he's young, he's a freshman, as if he just landed from Jupiter and he's playing baseball for the first time, as if he hasn't played baseball for the last decade. All right, this is little league stuff. This is even before you're playing high school or travel ball. This is what you learn when you're a kid. Tag up from third, score. With 2 outs, run. That's it. That's all. We're not even talking about like loafing down to first base. That's an effort thing. These are just mistakes. We'll see if they've already cost them one time. They got to cut down on these base running mistakes. Being aggressive is different than the base running mistakes. So we'll see if that matters. All right. Rice coming in to play the Cajuns this weekend. Let's see. I think we got some more midweek ball games today. James Madison hosting Virginia Tech. That's a day game. Ole Miss hosting Arkansas State. Arkansas State is off to a good start. They may be undefeated early on in the season here. Let's see. Now they are. They're 4-0. They beat Omaha of, I guess Omaha, Nebraska, right? That's Nebraska of Omaha, I think. And they beat Arkansas Pine Bluff. All right. They're off to a good start. See if my guy is still coaching there. I think he is. Oh, no, he's not. Okay. They have made a change. All right. So, all right. So Arkansas State taking on Ole Miss. You got Southern Miss taking on New Orleans and Southeastern taking on South Alabama. So that is today's baseball. We'll go over the weekend stuff a little bit later on. Should be noted, I think we're about a week and a half away from Marshall opening up their on-campus stadium. So that'll be fun for the Thundering Herd. Hopefully it warms up a little bit. A little bit of snow got in the way of the final preparations for the stadium. So they will be opening it up in about 10 days. All right, let's take a timeout. When we come back, we'll preview the Wednesday night hoops action and look ahead a little bit towards Thursday. You're listening to Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. Get your buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. Bet on all your favorite NBA players and teams with quick bets, live same-game parlays, exclusive props, and more. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Pelicans, going to be tough to get past the 5th seed. Can they go 17-10? They got 27 ball games left. Can they go 17-10 and finish with 50 wins? We'll see. They do not have the easiest schedule, although they do have a relatively easy homestand to begin with, and then it gets tougher when they go on the road. All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. Let's see what's happening in Sunbelt hoops tonight. You got James Madison. This is one of 4 ball games on the road. I certainly think that James Madison is locked into a top 4 seed because they're 3 games ahead of the 5th place teams. But could James Madison end up anywhere between 1 and 4? They're taking on Marshall. Marshall has just been up and down all season, and right now they're down. They've lost 3 straight, but all on the road. The loss to Coastal is not a great one. All right, losing at App State by 15 and losing at Troy by 16. All right, not great losses because you didn't compete in those ball games, and you've actually lost 4 out of 5, losing at home to Old Dominion. So that's not a great loss. I would think that James Madison wins this ball game. Let's see what the line is. JMU -6.5. That seems about right. Probably take JMU, but let's see. It's one of 4 ball games on the road in a row for JMU. They can basically clinch a top 4 seed with a win tonight. So, I mean, they would have to lose all 4 ball games, and the other teams would have to win all 4 ball games. And I'm not sure that's necessarily going to happen with the games that these teams have on their schedule. Southern Miss going to sweep the Cajuns. That would be interesting. That's what would have to happen, among other things. All right, the other ball game is, we had it here, is Coastal and Georgia State. All right, so what this ball game is about is trying not to get into the bottom 4. And we talk about the top 4 all the time. The bottom 4 is just as important because you want the bye. A Coastal win would get them out of the bottom 4. A Georgia State loss puts them in the bottom 4. So we'll take Texas State and Old Dominion out of it. They're probably going to be in the bottom 4 outside of a huge run. But you have Georgia Southern, Coastal Carolina, Monroe, South Alabama, all 5-9. And Georgia State, 6-8. Even Marshall is 7-7. Marshall starts losing a few in a row. They're going to have to battle to keep themselves out of the bottom 4. And if they lose to JMU, they're heading in that direction. So so if it's a big ball game here because Coastal Carolina can move to 6-9 and Georgia State moving to 6-9. They flip. Also, Monroe sitting there. They got the Cajuns. That's a big ball game for Monroe. If they beat the Cajuns, that doesn't help the Cajuns get in the top 4, but it also helps Monroe to avoid the bottom 4. Monroe loses. They go to 5-10. They're looking at the bottom 4. And it's really tough at that point in time. So there's actually a lot on the line. It doesn't seem to be all that big of a ball game, Georgia State and Coastal Carolina, but there is certainly a lot on the line when it comes to that. All right, quickly, the third. Oh, well, hold on, let's see what the line is. Georgia State by 9.5. They're at home. Let's see what Coastal's done on the road. I presume they have not played well on the road. They've actually won 2 in a row, beating Georgia Southern and Marshall, as it turns out. They lost at Monroe in a close ball game. They lost to Marshall in a blowout, got blown out at James Madison. Lost to Georgia Southern in a close ball game. I'm going to take Georgia State. I'm not really sure why. That's 9.5 just seems like a lot. This would be one of those games that I would probably stay away from. I don't have a good feeling in this one at all. So that seems like a lot of points for Georgia State. Although they have won 3 out of their last 4 ball games, their only loss was a 20-point loss at JMU. And Georgia State's finishing up with 4 games at home. So they're going to look to get off to a good start to avoid the bottom 4. All right, elsewhere in the Sun Belt on Thursday, quickly looking to Thursday's ball game. We'll do more of these coming up for tomorrow's episode. Southern Miss getting healthy. They're hosting South Alabama. That's a big ball game. So these are all must wins for Southern Miss, and South Alabama looking to avoid the bottom of 4. They had a tough loss to Arkansas State. That one hurt to try and avoid the bottom 4. Old Dominion 2-12 taking on App State. That's got letdown game written all over it for App State. That's just got letdown game. Huge win against the Cajuns, and Old Dominion 2-12, tougher than they appear. One would still think you would take App State. Georgia Southern taking on Texas State. Again, Georgia Southern looking to avoid the bottom 4. Cajuns in a tricky one against Monroe. Monroe's been playing better. And can the Cajuns overcome a letdown again after a tough loss to App State? Those letdown games are not quite as obvious. It would be much more difficult, I guess I would say, if it was like Thursday to Saturday or Wednesday to Saturday, right? Where you may not have time to digest it, the win or the loss. These are almost a week later. You would think you wouldn't get a letdown after that point in time. All right. And then Troy going to Arkansas State. That's a big ball game for both teams. We'll definitely get into that one. Arkansas State looking to get in the top 4. And Troy, do they finish up with 4 on the road? They do. And not any of them all that easy. At Arkansas State, at Monroe, at Louisiana, at Texas State. Both Monroe and Texas State playing much better than they had been before. And that Troy-Arkansas State game is on national TV. It is on ESPNU. That is outstanding. All right, thank you so much for tuning in to Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. I know there is certainly some bias in my coverage, only because, well, I'm here in Lafayette. So go check out what Jerry Glasgow said. I posted it on YouTube. Cajun softball coach had an interesting answer. Why did the offense do well against Louisiana Tech compared to Baylor and Mississippi State? And he gave a very honest answer. Look, we need these midweek ball. Well, just go look at it. It was a very refreshingly honest answer that you don't usually get from coaches. And he said what the issues were, and what it's going to mean towards the end of the season and the kind of success they're going to need to have if they do want to finish up in Oklahoma City at the College World Series. So you don't usually get honesty like that. And it took him a few seconds to decide if he wanted it. But I do appreciate his honesty. Cajuns with a win over Louisiana Tech last night. So, but obviously the coverage is biased because I'm sitting here in Lafayette. So we do all of the Cajun stuff. Thanks so much for tuning in. The subscriptions are going up. So almost 1,140. Appreciate it. Have a great day. We'll be back again on Thursday. We'll recap the Wednesday baseball and basketball action, and we'll look ahead to the Thursday basketball action and maybe a little weekend baseball action as well. You've been listening and watching the Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. Have a great day, everybody.